Now, if your doctor told you they could decrease your chances of dying from a sepsis infection, more easily match you with a clinical trial, and figure out what drugs already on the market might be better suited to treat whatever is making you sick, you'd probably think all of those things sound pretty great. Now, what if they told you they were using AI to do it? You might have some questions about that. That's exactly what our show is about today. Generative AI isn't just about asking ChatGPT to draw you as a cartoon character or write up an email that you'd rather not write yourself. AI has made its way into the medical field, and the Cleveland Clinic is embracing it in many ways in an effort to reduce physician workload, enhance patient experience, and increase organizational efficiency. People understandably have concerns about its use, though, so we're talking through those today as we continue our newsroom-wide, week-long reporting project, IdeaStream Explores Artificial Intelligence. Joining us by phone today, we have Dr. Lara Jehi, Cleveland Clinic Chief Research Information Officer. Dr. Jehi, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We also have Rohit Chandra, PhD, Cleveland Clinic's Chief Digital Officer. Rohit, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here.
Now, if you'd like to be a part of the conversation, you can call us at 866-578-0903, email us at soi@ideastream.org, or message us on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Rohit, as the Chief Digital Officer for Cleveland Clinic, can you tell us what is the clinic's overall mentality when it comes to using AI?
I think we're at an interesting point in time where AI techniques are developing rapidly and they're powerful and they have the potential to be transformative. So so our approach is how do we apply AI to healthcare? We think it has the potential to make healthcare safer, more scalable, more accessible. But at the same time, it's really important to do it very thoughtfully so that we can make sure that we're doing it safely, we have safeguards in place, and do it together with our patients so that they continue to have trust that we're providing them the safest care and that AI is being done in a very safe and reliable way.
Now, Rohit, the way that the Cleveland Clinic is embracing AI, it kind of falls into several different buckets. Not all of those deal directly with something that a patient will experience. Can you break those down for us, the three different categories where AI is being used at the clinic?
Yeah, broadly speaking, we look at AI in three different categories. At one end is clinical care, where we're looking to see can AI help us improve patient safety, risk, and just the clinical care and outcomes that we deliver. At the other end, the second category rather is we know that our caregiver, that healthcare scales with people, and we want to make sure we're bringing the best tools and technologies for our doctors, our nurses, and our caregivers to help them do their work much more efficiently and effectively. And the third category is really how do we optimize and scale our services so that operationally we can improve our ability to see more patients.
To stay with you for just another moment here, Rohit, you mentioned the importance of doing this carefully. What are some concerns that you have that you're taking into consideration when you try to figure out how to do this carefully when it comes to incorporating AI into the medical practice at the clinic?
So I'd say two main things. We all know that AI is in its early stages. So we know that there is the potential for what in the industry people will often call hallucinations or mistakes. So the first aspect that we do is when we are applying AI in any of these categories, we do it with what I'll say a human in the loop. We use AI as an assistant, but not as the decision maker. We're ensuring that there's a person, a provider, or nurse who's reviewing whatever AI may be recommending and checking it for accuracy and completeness. Mm-hmm. The second aspect that's a focus for us is to do it as transparently as possible. We make sure that we inform our patients, this is what we're doing, we get their consent. This is something that many of our patients may have experienced if they have had an encounter with a doctor recently, because it's important to do it together with our community of patients so that everybody understands what we're doing, what safeguards we have in place. So carrying that public trust along with us is important.
Let's talk about some of the uses on the clinical side that are being implemented at the Cleveland Clinic. Dr. Jay Hai, one of those uses involves matching patients with existing drugs, that might be better suited to treat whatever it is they're experiencing. The clinic has a partnership with the Chemical Abstract Society that's based in Columbus. So tell us about that partnership and how that makes this drug matching possible.
Sure. Getting a drug available for patients to use is a very complex process. Clinical trials cost billions of dollars, and they take 10 to 15 years to get through. So it's really important that we look at available drugs that are already approved on the market and proven safe to see if any of them could be used for a different disease, could work for a different disease. That process typically involves analyzing tons of data to do some matching between the chemical compound, which is the drug, and the target in the body that it's supposed to work on. How effective that process is heavily relies on how much data we have at our disposal to analyze. The Chemical Abstract Society, CAS, based here in Columbus, is the world authority that has been cataloging for over 100 years all the chemical compounds that were ever studied, patented, published on, analyzed. So its repository is larger than even the body of drugs that is now available on the market. So it opens up additional doors for us where for any given disease, we can analyze many more compounds and discover whether some that even didn't make it in the original trial or the original disease that they were designed for, but now we can discover a new application for them that can help patients who are waiting to find a treatment.
That is fascinating, Dr. Jay Hai. Can you share some examples of how this AI has been put in use and what are some of the connections that have been made?
We have many examples because at the Cleveland Clinic, we have a team that is dedicated for experimental therapeutics and drug discovery. And that team has made it their life's mission to go through this exercise of matching. You can think of the drugs as being keys. There are thousands of keys, thousands of existing drugs out there, and you need to match them with locks. That's the target, the different diseases that are out there. One example is in the case of Alzheimer's disease, where a researcher found that sildenafil or Viagra could theoretically, based on its, how it's simulated in three-dimensional space and the way it works in the body, that it could be something that can prevent Alzheimer's disease. There's another study where we found that a cholesterol drug, simvastatin, could theoretically help with preventing Parkinson's disease. We had many other examples during COVID. All of those examples are supported by this computational data, these AI simulations, and are going now through validation and clinical trials to prove their benefit.
Wow. We are talking about medical uses in artificial intelligence and the combination of the two. It's something the Cleveland Clinic is embracing. If you want to be a part of this conversation, the number is 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org. Rohit, another AI use at the Cleveland Clinic is related to sepsis. And according to the CDC, every year, about 1.7 million adults, at least that many in the U.S., develop sepsis. How big of a problem is this?
Sepsis is one of those infections that has amongst the highest mortality rates. So it can be anywhere from 12 to 15%, and roughly 1,000 people die of sepsis or sepsis-related complications every day in the United States. So it's a big problem, and the key is timely intervention. In fact, every hour of delay, we if we intervene early with antibiotics, we can substantially improve the clinical outcomes, but the key is timely intervention. In fact, every hour of delay can increase the risk of mortality. So this is an area where we're using AI. The challenge here is there's no simple test for sepsis. So it's hard to know when a patient is experiencing the onset of sepsis. So we use AI, we look at a variety of vital signs and tests for patients to predict that the patient may be experiencing the onset of sepsis. So we use AI to alert providers that a patient may be at risk. But then, to my previous comment of having a human in the loop, this triggers a bedside exam that is conducted by a provider. And then, after that determination is made, is when we are able to trigger early intervention. And that's something that we've launched and has been pretty successful for us.
Rohit, when we talked about this before the show in a pre-interview, you had mentioned that the way this works is if you're an inpatient at the Cleveland Clinic, your chart is kind of being scanned for these alert factors. And if enough of them come together, then that's when it does alert someone to come and perform that bedside examination to determine if you are experiencing a sepsis infection. So let me ask you this. Is there a concern about privacy when it comes to this type of use?
I think as patients and as consumers, we should always be concerned about privacy. And at the clinic, we take it obviously very seriously because eventually it is patients' data and we are stewards of their data and their care. So what we have is we have algorithms that are looking at the data and trying to essentially analyze them. And we ensure that the AI that we apply is being as one is obviously privacy, the other is just governance and ethical considerations. We apply that to all of our AI projects. And our driving factor is with those safeguards in place, how do we leverage these technologies to improve clinical outcomes?
Rohit, we want to thank you for your time. That's Rohit Chandra, PhD, Cleveland Clinic Chief Digital Officer. We'll say goodbye to you now. Thank you for being part of the show.
Thanks.
Now, Dr. Jahai, we want to talk about one more use of AI at the clinic before we wrap things up here today, and that's matching patients to clinical trials. So can you tell us what AI improves about this process?
AI has proven to be quite transformative in this process, actually. So the matching that we're talking about here is finding the right patient for the right study and vice versa. Clinical trials are this final conduit through which any drug, any device is proven safe and effective and thereby made available to patients. The criteria for those clinical trials are very complex, as you can imagine. And they're so complex that it takes now about 10 to 13 years from start to finish to go through all the phases of clinical trials. And you would think with that time and the money I mentioned earlier, over $1 billion per trial, that we should have that down. And in fact, we don't. 9 out of 10 clinical trials have to double their planned timeline because they cannot find the right patients. A third of the study sites, the hospitals, close with not even a single patient that they found for the clinical trial. And all of that is because the process now is heavily manual. Coordinators, researchers have to manually sift through records to find if patients fit for a given trial. AI is transforming that because it's applying this large language model technology within our electronic health record to scan all of those records and find whether the patients that would fit a trial that is having difficulty recruiting. And we have many examples of success in that.
Can you give us an example? I know when we spoke earlier, you told me about an example that drastically reduced the matching time and also really increased the patient numbers. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. That particular example was in cardiac amyloidosis. This is a rare disease that affects the heart and has significant, complications for our patients. Before applying AI, it was taking the study team 5 months to find one patient for the trial. After we applied AI through Diania Health, that's the partner we're working with, we found 30 patients, 30, in 1 week. So 5 months to find one patient before AI, up to 30 patients in 1 week
Wow.
with it. There was another example in a cancer study where same ratio, 5 months to one patient, that improved to 22 patients in 1 week. We did those pilots in these two diseases, and now we have this particular AI platform available for all of our clinical trials at the clinic.
Wow. Dr. Jahai, I want to ask you a question about the budget piece. Without the use of AI, typically about a third of a clinical trial's budget would go to the matching of the patients, which would be including staff. So presumably those jobs will go away. Is that a concern?
Well, actually, they will not. They will be shifted. So right now, that 30% is spent paying these coordinators to be doing the manual review of the records to find the patients. They're spending all their time trying to find patients to get the studies done. But their job is to also do the study procedures on those patients after we get them. Patients have to come, get visits, get examined, get blood work. And instead of us doing that, which is what is necessary to determine if the drug works, we are spending all of our time hunting to find the patients. So if we shift the balance and we get more patients in the studies sooner, then the jobs will be doing what they're really supposed to do, which is take care of the patients and get those studies done sooner and get more clinical trials completed so we can discover more drugs and more therapies for our patients.
Dr. Jahai, we appreciate you sharing with us some of the ways that artificial intelligence is being implemented at the Cleveland Clinic. Cleveland Clinic Chief Research Information Officer, thanks for being part of the Sound of Ideas today.
Thank you.
We'll take a quick break now, and when we come back, we'll hear from one of the stars of Suffs the Musical and learn about the role Ohio played in getting women the right to vote and having that be recognized. This is the Sound of Ideas. I'm Stephanie Haney. We'll be right back. This is the Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thanks for staying with us. The musical Suffs has been running on the Playhouse Square stage in Cleveland since last week and is here through February 22nd. Like its predecessors, Hamilton and Six, Suff is an entertaining historical interpretation. Instead of looking at the American Revolution or the ex-wives of Henry VIII, Suffs takes its audience on a journey through the years of the American women's suffrage movement, which led to the 19th Amendment and ultimately recognizing women's right to vote, though it would later come to be acknowledged as mostly a victory for white women. I saw it last week, and I left the theater feeling equal parts enraged, enlightened, and encouraged. It was an emotional roller coaster ride, both moving me to tears and making me laugh out loud several times throughout the show. The story in Suffs ends shortly after the 19th Amendment gets ratified. But as history shows, the law is bendable, and even long-standing precedent is not a predictor for maintaining equal rights. Today, we'll talk with one of the actors from Suffs, who portrays a real-life suffrage leader in the show. Joining us by phone, we have Monica Tulia Ramirez, who plays Inez Milholland. Monica, thanks for calling in.
Thank you for having me this morning. Hello.
We'll also learn about Ohio's role in the suffrage movement and some of the challenges with voting access today with Jen Miller, the executive director of the League of Women Voters of Ohio. Jen, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can call us at 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org or send us a message on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Now, Monica, you play a women's voting rights icon in the Suffs musical. Can you tell us about the real-life Inez Milholland?
Yes, absolutely. Inez Milholland was an American suffragist She was a lawyer, she was an activist, best known for combining political conviction with public visibility. She was born in Brooklyn. Her parents were politically progressive, and her father was a journalist of the New York Tribune. She basically she was inspired by Emmeline Pankhurst when she grew up in London, and she brought that to Vassar College. That's kind of when she got her start and was inspired to be a part of the movement. And then she got involved with the March on Washington, and she became this mouthpiece, rode on a horse, and basically was this visible person and this Joan of Arc figure, and kind of went from there. And that's what we see in this show as well.
How does it feel, Monica, to portray that real life major character in this story?
It's an incredible feeling every night. As you'll see if you come and see the show, I ride on this horse, and there's a kabuki that falls every evening, and it feels like the most insane roller coaster ride. And there's a breastplate that I wear, and it's an honor to play her and to portray her. She lived a very short life and did so many things. So, I feel that weight, and it's my job to honor her and to be as honest. And it's an amazing feeling. I love it.
Jen, we see the struggles that these women went through working for their right to vote in the musical Suffs. What can you tell us about what happened here in Ohio during the suffrage movement?
Well, the suffrage movement was very rich in Ohio, and that's because suffrage, the first time to talk about women's suffrage was actually at the anti-slavery conventions, and there was a strong abolitionist movement in Ohio. And we remained very active even after Ohio ratified the 19th Amendment. We remained incredibly active, putting pressure on the two presidential candidates of 1920 because they were both from Ohio. So we had Harding and Cox. Those two candidates were both from Ohio. So the suffragists in Ohio continued to put pressure on those candidates in hopes that they would put pressure on their parties.
And the Ohio League formed in 1920, and that was tied to the suffrage movement. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ohio was the first state to have a state suffrage association, and that was the Ohio Women's Suffrage Association that transformed into the League in 1920 in downtown Columbus, and that was founded by lawyers and teachers, nurses, Federation of Colored Women's Clubs, the Council on Jewish Women, so many different groups of women with this idea that once the right to vote had been finally won, that we would need to make sure that everyone had the logistics that they could get to the ballot box. And we also started advocating immediately for other important policies like the ability to divorce or not have child marriages in Ohio.
Right now, today in Ohio, Jen, there are efforts to change access to voting that the League is pushing back on. So what is the League of Women Voters of Ohio focused on now?
So we are always focused on two things at the same time. First, making sure that every voter knows what they need to do to access their ballot and have their voices heard, but also on that policy side. There's a lot of priorities right now, making sure our boards of elections are well funded, making sure that we are able to not have any more backsliding in terms of access. Right now, Ohio has the worst voter ID laws in the country, and we continue to change absentee voting, many other things. And so right now we're trying to hold that line, but also defend against federal efforts like the SAVE Act that could disenfranchise so many Ohioans who are otherwise eligible.
Thanks for keeping us up to date on what the League is focusing on, Jen. We got an email now from Denise in Cleveland. Denise writes, I also saw it, Suffs the Musical, last week, and I loved it, loved, all capital letters. If I can swing seeing it a second time before the run ends, I will. To anyone who is planning to see it, or even those who aren't, I highly recommend Joe Jerry's Broadway Buzz episode on Playhouse Square's YouTube channel that accompanies this production. Denise in Cleveland, thank you for writing in. Monica, what does being a part of the Suffs musical mean to you today as a woman in 2026?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, it's it's different. I was in the Broadway company as well. As we travel it, I think the biggest thing is on Broadway. It was something that we were trying to create. We have previews. Things were changing during those previews, and it was transitioning. So I suppose what's changing on tour is we're having conversations. It's conversations with people after the shows. So I think for me, sharing it and it's a completed product is what is most important to me, and that's the biggest effect. I get to talk to people who come from different backgrounds, not just people traveling into New York or New Yorkers having conversations. It's everybody across the country. We just came from the West Coast. Inez did an entire tour on the West Coast. We see these banners fall during the end of Act One, and people have stories about their families and their mothers and their grandmothers who saw her speak or went to the March on Washington and saw her ride. And it's incredible to have these conversations. They're very personalized. So to me, it's people who have these personalized stories, and that is an incredible reaction. So I love hearing those stories, and that it's an honor to hear that.
If you're just joining us here on The Sound of Ideas, we're talking about the women's suffrage movement and the role Ohio played in that. This is in light of a musical called Suffs, which is running now in Playhouse Square through February 22nd, which takes a look at the women's suffrage movement. If you want to be a part of the conversation, you can call us at 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org. Our guests today are one of the stars from the Suffs musical who plays real-life main character in the suffrage movement, Inez Milholland. That's Monica Tulia Ramirez. And then we also have the executive director of the the League of Women Voters of Ohio with us, Jen Miller. Again, that number to call is 866-578-0903, and the email is soi@ideastream.org. We have an email now from Connie. Connie says, Suffs is a great show that I saw last Saturday. I thought the show did a nice job of portraying the conflict between black and white women. A group of League of Women Voters members from Canton will go to the show this weekend. Connie, thanks for sharing that with us. And Jen, the passage of the 19th Amendment did end up being historically perceived as a mostly white women's victory. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, absolutely. And this was a challenge throughout the suffrage movement. Part of the reason why the Ohio Women's Suffrage Association was formed, even though the National Suffrage Association was also out of Ohio, was because of a disagreement about race. And what we saw as we were trying to get the ratification is that the southern states continued to deny that the ratification because they did not want to give Black women the right to vote. So let's be clear that even at that time in practice, a lot of women of color did not have the right. For example, Puerto Rican women didn't get that right until the 1930s. Native American women did not get citizenship until 1924, and it wasn't fully guaranteed until Utah agreed to guarantee the rights of Native women in 1962. And so what we have is, whether it's the Voting Rights Act, the ADA legislation that are both in the 20th century, a continued expansion of ballot access for all people. And now, unfortunately, we are facing efforts to decrease that access. And that's why a musical like Suffs is so important, so that we can inspire ourselves and steel our hearts and minds to protecting the ballot today for all.
Absolutely.
Monica, the reality of racial and even sexual identity inequality among women who are fighting for their right to vote, that's a big part of the story of Suffs. Are you seeing any particular audience reaction to that piece of it as you take this on tour around the country?
Yes. Mostly within our youth. We've had one actually student matinee that we've performed. I think that's the biggest reaction in regards to that question. We had some juniors in high school, some sophomores in high school. They didn't have a lot of reactions to a lot of the comedy within it. That kind of went over their heads, but they were very engaged. There was a lot of silence. They were listening. And after we had a talk back, and a lot of them were scared. They were very emotional. They had responses about the climate of the world. They see what's going on. And a lot of them were femme people, and they were talking about how they were scared for their own bodily autonomy, and they were getting ready to be voters. And it was very emotional to see, and they were scared. One of the students had two moms, and they saw their mothers up on the stage with the queer identifying characters as well. And that's huge to see as well within this story. And I think that's beautiful that Shayna put that in there, because not necessarily, we don't really know if they were queer. I'm talking about Carrie Chapman Catt and Molly Hay, and they're buried together in a cemetery. But I digress there. But yes, it is a huge responsibility, and I think that a lot of the younger generation are seeing that, and they're seeing where they came from and the rights that they have now and how precious that is and how it can be taken away. So yes.
Jen, Ohio ratified the 19th Amendment in 1919, but that's not how it works when you add a amendment to the U.S. Constitution. One state ratifying doesn't make it happen. You've got to get to that 36. It didn't become a part of the U.S. Constitution until 1920 when Tennessee ratified the 19th Amendment. What happened to politics in the state of Ohio once that final ratification came through?
Ooh, I love this question because this is, especially for folks who say that voting doesn't matter, this truly demonstrates that it does. So what we call, after women get the right to vote, we call it the maternalization of the state. Policies change dramatically. We start funding schools. We start preserving parks. We start working on clean water. At the time that the 19th Amendment passed, there was a lot of child marriage and forced marriage in Ohio and no ability to divorce. That gets changed. The ability for women to protect themselves, even from things like syphilis, believe it or not, which women were getting a lot of syphilis from their significant others. All of these things started to change with the ratification of the 19th Amendment because this new populace of women were thinking more about children and families and communities.
Monica, you were a part, as you mentioned, of this show when it debuted in New York. So you saw audience reaction then, you've seen audience reaction now. What's that been like? Has there been a change in what you're seeing from people who are experiencing the show for the first time, and some actually for multiple times?
Yes, there have been people that have traveled to New York and then they visit again, actually, in their home state, or they come from a different state, which is an incredible thing to have that allegiance. It's great. I think now what feels different is how personally the material lands. Again, the show isn't telling necessarily audiences what to think. It's reminding us that rights are built by people and they can be dismantled by those same people in the same way. So I think that realization feels very present. And it's always been that way. You know, I've done this since the public back in 2021, 2022. I've been with this project, and each time we have audiences that have a reaction, oh, this is so relevant to now. And when we were doing this on Broadway, it was an election cycle and it felt relevant. We have this moment where it's like, come on blue. We have a moment where Inez has a campaign saying, vote him out. And there are so many moments now. We have tariff reform. We have so many clips of that are like, oh, did you change this lyric because of where we are now in our political climate? And we say, no, it's just what Shayna wrote and how relevant that is and how history can recycle itself. And that's just what it is. So yeah, I think that's my answer there.
Monica, as we wrap things up here, we know that Stuffs is running at Playhouse Square through February 22nd. Is there anything that you'd like to say to people who might be considering to come out to see the show?
I would say please bring your uncles, please bring your fathers, your sons. It's just as important to educate your daughters and your grandmothers and your sisters, but please bring the men in your lives. We have to educate them as well and bring them and inspire them to represent and to learn about this history just as much. So please bring them. We would love to have you.
And Jen, as we wrap up here, final question to you. What do you want people to know about the current work of the League of Women Voters of Ohio?
Voters are our North Star, and we need as many volunteers as possible, as many members as possible to reach the people of Ohio on how to access the ballot and make sure their voices are heard. So please join us in this work. It is the continuation of that suffrage legacy. It's the continuation of fighting for a multiracial democracy where all voices are heard.
That's all the time we have today for this conversation. Jen Miller, Executive Director of the League of Women Voters of Ohio, thanks for being with us here on The Sound of Ideas.
Thank you.
And Monica Tulia Ramirez, who plays Inez Milholland in Suffs the Musical, running now at Playhouse Square through February 22nd. Monica, thanks for being with us here on The Sound of Ideas.
Thank you. See you at Playhouse Square.
Now, if you missed any part of today's show, you can hear a rebroadcast tonight at 9 on 89.7 WKSU. You can catch every episode of The Sound of Ideas on demand wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. To get the last word on today's topics, you can email us at soi@ideastream.org, and you can find us on Instagram. You can leave us a comment at The Sound of Ideas. Yesterday, we talked about AI being used in therapy, for friendship, and even turning into romantic relationships for some people. An audience member who asked to remain anonymous wrote in, "I generally have antipathy for AI. As a creator, it is essentially a plagiarism engine. But in terms of people using it as a therapist or in crisis, I feel like people could turn to it because there aren't a lot of better options. As someone who has been suicidal, one of the biggest fears that I have in talking about it is being involuntarily incarcerated. Being honest with my therapist could potentially uproot my entire life and send me back to square one. The lack of trust and fear could be a motivating factor pushing people to be using AI for this purpose. Shout out to 988. We want to thank our anonymous audience member for sharing that insight, 988 being a suicide crisis line. You can text that number, 988, if you are in need or know someone in need. Now, tomorrow on The Sound of Ideas, it's the Reporters Roundtable hosted by Mike McIntyre. They'll be talking about Cleveland's slow efforts to remove lead from homes and other news from the week. Monday is a holiday, so we'll have a special airing for you at 9 a.m. on the works of author James Baldwin. And I'll be back with you on Tuesday, sharing my conversations with the leading candidates for Ohio's governor's race, Democrat Dr. Amy Acton and Republican Vivek Ramaswamy. Also, remember, Tuesday night, you're invited to our home here in Playhouse Square for our community tour. We'll be sharing lessons learned about artificial intelligence. The live show starts at 6 p.m., It's free to attend. We just need you to register at ideastream.org/community tour, and I hope to see you there. This will be my first one, so it'll be a fun learning experience for all of us. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you very much for keeping the conversation going. Have a great weekend, and I'll be back with you on Tuesday.